What's up, Duke fans, and welcome back to the Duke Blue Central podcast. It is a great day today. Duke basketball has officially returned for the 2023-2024 season. I'm coming at you live right after Duke's exhibition against UNC Pembroke. It is Wednesday, November 1st. Just the first day of November. Duke basketball returned to action tonight in an exhibition against UNC Pembroke. It was a great day for Duke basketball, and just coming at you, kind of get some live thoughts and reactions right post-game after tonight. So first thing I want to do is kind of read some of the box score. I don't have a full-out box score yet. I'm not sure if the full one's been posted, but just some leaders on the team for tonight. Flip finished as our leading scorer. He had 17 points, 6 rebounds. Proctor right after him, 15 points and 5 rebounds, 12 of which came in the first opening 5 minutes of the game. McCain finished with a solid 15 points. Roach finished with 13. Stewart finished with 12. Sean Stewart finished with 12 points and 6 rebounds, and Mark Mitchell finished with 11 points. Now, if you were watching this game at all, starting lineups, John Shire pulled out the 3-guard lineup early in the year. I had predicted earlier that I thought the starting lineup was going to include Ryan Young in the beginning of the year, just as it did last year. But no, John Shire decided to roll out Jared McCain into the starting lineup from the very first game of the year. I expect that this is the same starting lineup we're going to see against Dartmouth on Monday night, and it worked like a thing of beauty. The 3-guard lineup situation seems like it's going to really work out for Duke this year, and I think Jared McCain in particular really proved why he deserves that starting spot in this game. But we'll get to him in a minute. But this game started just in an absolute flurry from Tyrese Proctor, hitting 5 threes, I think, in the span of about 5 to 7 minutes, maybe less than that. I think he hit 4 in the first 4 minutes. Just a flurry from the three-point line from him. It's exactly the kind of play we need from Proctor. I think if you were looking at Proctor going into this game, there's just been so much expectation put on him. You know, he's going on All-American preseason list. He's getting, honestly, more hype from the kind of deep college basketball journalist guys are kind of pegging him as a potential, best point guard in the country in all of college basketball this year. So if there's one thing I was looking for from him, is just that, what's he going to look like just coming out of the gates, even though this is an exhibition. This is your first time on TV in front of a lot of fans at Cameron. What's he going to come out like? And he answered the call in tenfold, I think. The level of shooting that he had tonight is exactly the type of improvement that you see from freshman to sophomore year and that everybody expected him to take. Now, it's just one game. You never know what's going to happen over the course of a whole season. But, man, this is exactly what you wanted to see from him tonight. He just looked unguardable out there. The shot looked pure. It looked like it was going in every time. The shot selection was there. Didn't feel like he took one out of turn or out of rhythm. Didn't force anything up. But just he was total control in the first little bit of this game and throughout the whole game. But, man, those first few minutes were just an incredible start to the year for Duke basketball and exactly what you need to see from Tyrese Proctor. Another note I took on him was he is definitely maintaining his role as the primary ball handler on this team. Last year, Duke fans will remember Jeremy Roach started the year as the primary on-ball ball handler. They might have split that role 50-50, somewhat like that. But Roach went down with a toe injury last year that really bothered him throughout the whole course of the year. But from then on, Proctor really took over that role as the primary ball handler, and it has not looked back since. He was, for sure, every time he was out there on the court, the guy the other guys were looking to pass the ball to in the half court and even in transition. It's clear to me Proctor's going to be the guy with the ball in his hands most for this team. He's getting the ball 90% of the time. I think the more he touches it in a possession, the more good things that happen. So it is no concern of mine that Roach or one of these freshmen are going to come in and be too ball dominant with him out there. It seems clear to me the coaching staff has handed the keys over to Proctor, the keys to this offense to Proctor to initiate everything, and man, he does a great job at it. He had a couple really nice pick and rolls there. There was a a super nice Proctor to Filipowski pick and roll there that I'm sure will be playing on repeat throughout this season as the starters get more playing time. We're going to be seeing that a lot this year with Flip setting screens and Proctor dishing them. Just about as good as game as you could imagine for Tyrese Proctor. And boy, if he shoots like this, he might be in the running for ACC Player of the Year or even National Player of the Year. But I know I think he finished 5 for 7. That's a lot to ask to do that every game. But yeah, let me run down the rest of this box score, some rest of the thoughts. I just want to say, too, I plan to kind of think about some lineup combinations and speak to kind of the weakness and strengths of different lineups. But we just threw out so many different lineups in this game. It's just hard to keep track of them at all, and almost kind of pointless, I feel, to break down the ones that worked or didn't. I mean, the game was out of hand super early. You could definitely say the weakest lineup is the one that we had there at the end, but that's all as expected. So I'm going to kind of take a player approach to this instead. But I want to start off kind of talking about the defense. The defense is something a lot of people had questions about this year. You know, we don't have a huge shot blocker down at the 5 position like we have for the past couple years. We've been spoiled with Lively and Mark Williams from last year and then 2 years ago. It's just we Flip is going to be fine defensively at the 5, I feel, but he is not going to be a type of shot blocker that those guys are, and that's no disrespect to him. You're looking at 2 of the more elite shot blockers we've seen in college basketball in the past few years. So I kind of was wondering what this defense was going to look like, or are we just going to be totally sold out on offense to just score more points than the other team? But the defense was interesting, way, way different than previous years. If you're just a Duke fan who just watches the game and kind of doesn't do a lot of research on the team, you might be a little shocked and not in awe, but definitely have some, maybe not questions, but maybe some thoughts on how this team is going to play defense this year. It just looks way different. It's not what we've had for the past few years, where everybody's just playing man the whole time, and you get some switching between the guards and forwards, but we've got that 5 sitting back there in the lane at all times like we did with Lively. This team defensively is all about switching and pushing and pressuring the ball. The pressure on the ball tonight, even when we're playing in an exhibition, was just insane how much pressure they were putting on the ball. Double teams everywhere, switching everywhere. Flip was out there on the perimeter a ton. The biggest emphasis for this defense seems to be to not even let the ball get into the lane. I think, they as a coaching staff know that because we don't have that great eraser of a shot blocker down at the 5 guarding the paint, a big emphasis for us needs to be keeping the ball out of the paint as much as possible, because we feel great about our perimeter defense, even with the big guys getting out there, including Mark Mitchell, Kyle Filipowski, and Sean Stewart. Those guys are great defenders on the perimeter. So let's play to that as our strength instead of relying on a big shot blocker down at the rim. So that seems to be a huge point of emphasis for this defense, and I think that's the right strategy to employ here. I love all the switching. I love that basically among the starters, all basically except Jared McCain, you can almost throw those guys up guarding anyone on opposing teams, especially if you're playing a smaller team. We just have the potential to switch probably like no other team in college basketball this year, especially when you've got a guy like Flip who's 7'1", who has no issue getting out to the perimeter and guarding some of these point guards. But the defense I thought it was great. I thought it was better than I expected. This UNC Pembroke team is an interesting squad. I think it said they were ranked 8th or preseason ranked 8 in all of Division II this year. So this is not a horrible Division II team. This is one of the top echelon Division II teams. Not saying that they're on the Division I level, but this is not just a nobody school altogether coming in, and they kind of hang their hat on defense and rebounding and things like that. But it was just it was going to be fascinating to watch how we played defense against them tonight, and I was impressed by the level of ball pressure. It just felt like every pass Pembroke had to make, the Duke guards were just making their life as tough as possible out there, especially when you've got guys like Blakes and Mark Mitchell out there that just feel like they would be. I tweeted this out during the game that they would feel like the most unfun players to play against. Just big, strong, long guys that just don't let you get away with anything on the defensive side of the ball. They are just hounds, and you could say the same thing about Proctor and some of the other guys on this team. But I think defensively, this squad is going to revolve around switching, not letting the ball get into the paint, and intense ball pressure, and I think they did a great job of that tonight. Kind of want to break down Jared McCain's performance too. As I said earlier, to me, he proved why he got this starting spot on the team. And here's the interesting about McCain, and I don't want to take too much credit here, but I did say this leading up to this season in my player breakdown of him, is that everyone talks about the shooting with McCain. You know, he wins the McDonald's All-American three-point shooting contest, and you know, all of his highlights seem to be about his shooting. So that's what everybody is thinking when he comes into the year. But I said earlier, he does so many things other than that right. It's a crime to him to just label him a three-point specialist like some of the other members of the Duke team or even of the Duke's past team. He's not just that. The three-point shot and his shooting form in general is just an element of what makes his game so good, and I think he proved that tonight. I might be corrected on this, but I don't think he made a three the entire game, and he ends up being, the fourth highest scorer, I think? Now, third highest scorer, 15 points. You know, tied Proctor out there for second place, but it's just he ends up with 15 points and doesn't make a three all game. That should show you alone, even on just the offensive side of the ball, what he can do without his three-point shot. If he hits 2 threes in this game, you know, we're talking about him being the second highest scorer on the team, and expectations for him are just getting even higher, but I think they already are. Just a ton of smart decisions from him. Does not play like a freshman at all. He had that one really good possession where he got the ball right under the basket and had the know-how and knowledge to kick it back out to Proctor for an open three instead of forcing the issue under the basket, which I think a lot of freshmen in that position tend to do, kind of get the ball and get a little headstrong. But he is always looking up, always ready to pass, ready to make the right decision. I thought he did a fine job on defense too. You know, he doesn't jump off the page defensively, but he had a couple nifty steals there. I thought were good. A quick guy, and for this team's style, he just fits it like a glove. Fast, shooting, transitional. He proved to me why he deserves to be in that starting spot from day one, and I look forward to seeing everything that he does. But once again, the biggest takeaway for me for Jared this game is that don't miss how he can impact a game without his three-point shot. Everyone talks about his shooting. I know he's a great shooter, but this kid does so much more than just shoot the three effectively. Don't miss out on what he's doing off ball, with the ball in his hands, passing, driving. He's perfect from the line tonight. Just don't miss out on him. And the other freshman guard, Caleb Foster. I want to warn people to just be patient with Caleb Foster. I think he looked a little jumpy at first, but settled into the game nicely. And I think late in the game, you kind of saw what he is as a player. You know, tough shot maker, really good driver of the basketball, guy who is a good passer, looking for the open guy on the perimeter. You know, we could even see that in some of the practices and stuff like that. But you saw who he was late in the game. Floaters, mid-range shots. Yeah, I love that floater shot down the lane. And I'll tell you, his shot looks very strange. Looks like it's kind of a one-handed push shot. Even when he made a three late in the game, which is a great sign for him to be making outside shots. But it almost looks like a floater every time he shoots the ball. But hey, you can't argue with the results. The guy's making shots. He's making shots. And I think late in the game, when he was kind of running that second unit, you saw what he's going to be as a player. But we can be patient with him. And the beauty of this team is just that there are so many other guys that can cover for you if you're having a bad night. You know, you look up towards the end of the first half, you know, Flip, I think only had 3 points. And you look up and Duke is still dominating the game because Proctor's exploded. McCain's exploded. There are just so many guys on this team that, you know, if one guy has a bad night, or let's say Proctor's not shooting the ball well, I just feel like there are so many directions and styles that this team can play that it's not going to be a huge deal. A lot of teams, even top 10, top 25 good teams you look at in college basketball these days, go look at the preseason top 25. If Purdue loses Zach Edey, that team drastically drops. I mean, let's say Zach Edey goes down with an injury and is out for a few weeks. That team's ceiling is just massively cut off. And, not wishing an injury on everybody, but this even applies to bad shooting days or just bad days playing. This Duke team, removing one player, even if it's a star player, you obviously are going to miss him. If Proctor or Flip goes down, has to miss some time. Other teams are going to view that as an opportunity to beat Duke. But there are just so many other guys on the team that you don't necessarily have to worry as much about what if Flip doesn't have it tonight. There are so many other guys that can cover for him. That's one of the more exciting things about this team. It is just that possibility. Because when you're in March, one game sends you home. When you're in the tournament and competing for national championships or even ACC championships, one game sends you home. So, let's say, again, not to brag on Purdue, let's use them as an example. They're in a tournament game, and Zach Edey picks up 2 quick fouls in the first 2 minutes of a March Madness game. You're really, that's a very stressful situation to be in as that team, because your one guy it goes down, you could be home. Just because of that, just because of foul trouble and things like that. And that's exciting about this Duke team is that you obviously have guys you'd rather have than not, but there are so many guys that can step up and make shots and play defense that I don't think that's going to be as much as a problem for us as it will be for some of the other teams in the top 10 of this year. Next guy I want to talk about is Sean Stewart. And I think of the freshmen, he kind of looks and plays maybe the most like a freshman, not physically and athletically. He looks anything but it. But again, I'm going to preach patience with Sean Stewart. He had moments where he absolutely shined in this game, and his bounce and his push off and his post moves. Yeah, there are some times where you watch him and you think this guy could move into the starting roster. And then there are other times you look at him and he makes some bad decision or he fouls a lot and things like that. And he's got some notes, but just be patient with Sean. I think, by beginning of next year, by January, February, we're really going to see what kind of player he becomes. I think, but the thing on him is that you can't teach the kind of athleticism that he has. He's got that bounce. He's got that Zion-esque bounce and physicality and strength that you just can't teach. So the more technique and the more game experience this guy gets, the better he's going to be. I'm super pumped to see how he goes. And he ends up being one of the leading scorers for tonight. Now, part of that is a symptom of just playing time at the end. The last 12 minutes of the game, we're rolling out, some of the bench guys. But Caleb Foster and Sean Stewart were the guys kind of holding it down out there. So they got some time and some points late game that they might not have got in a regular game. But yeah, I thought Sean looked good. I thought it was interesting, the bench rotation. Sean didn't come in until after Power and Blake's came in, which is interesting. I think most people would have had Sean Stewart over TJ Power and over Blake's too, depending on how you look at it and the situational substitutions. Obviously, Blake's is a guard and Stewart's coming in for the big guys typically. But he did get a ton of burn, ton of playing time there at the end. So I was excited to see that. They're kind of in the beginning of the first half. I was worried he wasn't going to get enough time and worried kind of what the rotation was going to look like with him. And that is something we're going to see more during the season when we get into actual play. Exhibitions are great kind of to look at for the first half, things to see how the subs are going to be. But the second half, you're getting a lot of new guys and bench guys in there. So we'll see come Monday with Dartmouth, depending, that game could be a blowout too. But we'll see kind of what his minutes per game breakdown might be at least in the beginning of this year. But let's be patient with Sean too. He had moments here where he looked awesome. He had a couple good mid-range jumpers. That's something I think not a lot of people expected him to have at this point, but is a nice addition. If he can just have the threat of making that little mid-range jumper before he gets into the post, it'll help his game out a lot, just because defenders will be forced to kind of jump and try to guard that, and he can get to the basket as quick as anybody on this team. So I was excited to him. Huge alley-oop in the beginning. What a way to start the game for him, catching a great lob from Caleb Foster, and one of the probably highlights Duke will post from this game. And quickly, Flip looked great. I think it felt like Flip didn't even have to try out there to score. There were times in the first half where you watch him and it's like it even looks like he's kind of just messing around out there. I'm not worried about him at all. Still looks like there was no reason for him to really push himself tonight too much. Looks like he's working back up, but he looked great. I mean, you look up and he ends the night as the leading scorer. He made a 3 tonight and it looked good. Took it with confidence, but wasn't taking them as much as he was in countdown, which I thought was good. I don't think he's a player that should rely too much on his 3. I think that's something that if he's left open, but he's better down there in the paint and the post, and that was apparent tonight. So a lot of people, thinking about how many 3s he took at countdown, I didn't think that was a big deal then, and it didn't prove to be a big deal tonight. But Flip looked great. Not worried about him at all. Don't have too much to say on him. He was Flip. He was Flip tonight. Mark Mitchell and Jeremy Roach looked awesome. Same thing on them. They looked like what we expected them to be. I didn't realize Mark and Flip had put on that much weight, or kind of had forgotten about it until they said it on the broadcast tonight. But the guys do look beefier. They look stronger. I think that fits with the roles they're going to play this year. Flip being more at the 5 and Mark playing at the 4. But they both looked awesome out there tonight. No question that they've improved. Mark shot a 3 and made it. Exactly what we need from him to play lockdown defense and kind of be that, that roaming defender that can switch and guard anybody. I thought he did a good job of that tonight. Expect good things from him, as always. I'm not worried about Mark Mitchell, Jeremy Roach, or Kyle Filipowski in the least sense. Thought they played great. And just the passing was awesome on this team too. Some more just kind of overall thoughts. It just feels like the chemistry for this team is already just off the charts. It felt like last year, even when the season started, we were still building a lot of chemistry. Watch how we played against Kansas and watch how we played at the end of the year. It was so different. Like Proctor not getting there until really late in the offseason, I think really hurt last year's team in the beginning of the season because they didn't really gel and they didn't know how to play with each other. This year, it already feels like they are ready to hit the ground running. And even with the freshmen, they even said it on the broadcast, it feels like McCain and Foster have played together for years now. And it looked like that out there at times. These guys are just – everyone looks so unselfish. They're never afraid to make the extra pass. It was a thing of beauty to watch the passing out there tonight. I think I had almost all positive notes here. If I had one negative, is that the rebounding didn't jump off the page to me. I don't know. I'll have to look at the official box score to see what the results were, but didn't feel like we were getting a ton of offensive rebounds or second chance points. Not that we needed that many because we were shooting the ball so dang well, so maybe that's not a good stat to draw from. But even on the the defensive side of things, I think we let up some offensive boards. But that's something that can improve, and when you're making as many shots as Duke is and when you playing as fast as Duke was, the other team is just going to get a lot of possessions and thus more chances to rebound. But that's something that didn't just shock me with how great it was the rebounding. Kind of like everything else blew me out of the water with expectations, but the rebounding was about as good as I expected coming into. And that's something that can improve, and part of that too is Ryan Young not getting a lot of minutes. I know he gets a lot of crud talked about him online, even by some Duke fans. But the guy is a super efficient rebounder defensively and offensively, and I think he only played 9 minutes tonight, kind of giving the veterans some rest maybe. But yeah, that's something that can improve. But I'll take a slightly less good rebounding Duke team with everything else that's going right. I think if the guards are playing like this and we're playing this style, I'm fine with accepting a little less rebounding prowess. But overall, man, this team's style is just so different than last year's. Aggressive, fast. They shoot early in the shot clock, aren't afraid to shoot threes, constantly looking for transition baskets with a emphasis on transition three-pointers. I thought that was interesting to watch. It's not like a traditional Duke team, maybe where in the transition you're looking for the alley-oop or the dunk. A lot of the times we're looking for those guards to leak out beyond the three-point line and get an open three. And let me tell you, this team was super fun to watch tonight, and I think they are going to be fun to watch throughout this whole season. They just are aggressive offensively and defensively. But, you know, they're ball hounds, putting pressure on the ball at all points defensively, and, man, offensively, they're looking to run at every opportunity because they know we can bring guys off the bench if guys need rest, and we know we can get as open threes as we can in transition, and they looked for that heavy and often tonight. And it's just refreshing to see, kind of after the last two Duke teams that didn't really run as much. I guess you could say the team 2 years ago was more willing to run with the guys that could bring the ball up the court like Paolo. But certainly last year's team was about as slow as Duke team as I've ever seen. But this year's team, it's funny, even though we bring back most of the players from last year's team, this year's team just looks totally different. Fast, aggressive, shooting threes, and just fun to watch. So that's kind of all my thoughts I have on tonight's exhibition game. Super exciting time to be a Duke fan. Duke basketball is back. I'll be coming at you very soon with more episodes. The episodes are going to start falling here quick with kind of pregame analysis as well as postgame breakdown. So make sure you're subscribed to Duke Blue Central anywhere you listen to podcasts. Rate the show, share the show. If you want to help me out, you can drop me a follow at Duke Blue Central over on Twitter or X. Would love to hear your comments and your support there. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. I'll be back at you soon with another episode. But last and certainly not least, go Blue Devils.